that in the West Coast they never use the word sneakers. I said, you've got your sneakers on, but they are tennis shoes. Don't forget. Okay, I'm delighted to be joined. And now, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
The Democratic Leadership Etymology course. Okay, well, I'm proud to be joined by Senators Durbin, Murray, and Stabenow. And as you know, a lot's happening this week. It's a busy week. Last night, we passed the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. Hopefully later today, we will pass the Postal Reform Bill. It looks pretty certain. And before the end of the week, we are aiming to pass a government funding omnibus bill. Republicans and Democrats are very, very close to finalizing the agreement. I expect there will be text released in a few hours, and we're working very hard on a few last-minute issues, cyber and VAWA. On VAWA, I am pushing very hard to get it in. I'm hopeful that it will, and I think there's a real good chance that VAWA will end up in the bill, which will be another significant legislative accomplishment of this Senate in a bipartisan way. And Joni Ernst has been very, very helpful on that issue. The omnibus has three major parts. One, more than $12 billion in assistance for Ukraine, as Ukrainians fight bravely off Putin's illegal invasion. More than $15 billion for COVID preparedness funding, and many policy changes that are included in the omnibus, including the President's moonshot for cancer research and an increase in Pell Grants. The omnibus comes at a crucial moment. With the war in Europe and the return to normal after the pandemic, we have to confront challenges that we haven't seen in a very long time. The events in Ukraine have necessitated action, and we need to get this done and get it done very fast. The proposal that we've made on Ukraine is strong. We also have $15 billion in COVID preparedness funding. That is a really smart investment. That is just as important as any part of this bill, even though it doesn't get the attention. The odds are that we cannot discount the fact that a new variant can come. And if we have learned a lot from the three variants, but we've also learned if we're not prepared, it can return to the days of lockdowns and closed schools and life not being normal. So there's a real obligation of the Congress to make sure we're prepared, which means immediately having an adequate supply of vaccines, of therapeutics, of testing, so that if, God forbid, the new variant comes, we can go at it right away, go after it right away. Woe be us if we haven't learned the lessons of the previous three. As you know, many of us felt the Trump administration was totally ill-prepared. He was saying, it's not real, it'll go away, and look what happened. We should not repeat that mistake, and I'm very glad on a bipartisan basis we're going to see $15 billion in COVID-prepared funding. It's a really smart investment. We cannot be unprepared if or when the next variant hits. Okay? Across the country, life is returning to normal, thankfully. We want to keep it that way. We want to keep it that way. And only with preparedness can you make sure that happens. We're also addressing another threat, of course, to our way of life. I'm really pleased we're including a robust aid package that will help the people of Ukraine. There is a large chunk of it is humanitarian relief. They lack food, they lack clothing. The Ukrainians lack food, they lack clothing. They lack shelter, electricity, medicines. We must get them these things. There's a Holocaust going on. When you see that people are lined up on buses to just leave a conflict zone and Putin's artillery shells those buses, that is just below humanity, below dignity. We also need to give the brave Ukrainian fighting forces, who are doing much better than anyone ever imagined, the arms they need, whether it be javelins or stingers or anything else. They need these arms simply to defend themselves against brutal Russian aggression. So between the omnibus itself, a whole lot better than a CR, COVID relief, and aid for Ukraine, this omnibus in many ways meets the great challenges that we live in and must confront right now. Senator Durbin.
Let me say at the outset, congratulations to my colleague from Illinois, Bobby Rush, who introduced the Emmett Till anti-lynching statute. Any student of the Senate can tell you that this was one of the most controversial racial issues after the Civil War. This chamber was filled with debate on this, and the filibuster was used over and over again to stop the establishment of a federal anti-lynching law. Bobby Rush passed it in the House and sent it over to the Senate, and had the cooperation and co-sponsorship of Cory Booker, Tim Scott, and Raphael Warnock. And last night, I want to thank Senator Schumer personally for this. They were able to move the bill on the floor and bring it to passage. It is named the Emmett Till anti-lynching law because of a tragedy which occurred in 1955 when a 14-year-old young African boy went down to Mississippi to visit his family and was brutally murdered. They brought his corpse back to Chicago, and his mother bravely, with great courage, opened it so the public could see what they'd done to her son. That, I believe, was the beginning of the modern civil rights movement. And I want to thank all those who were involved in this. It was a great moment to know that at this point in our history we have acknowledged the obvious, that lynching was one of the darkest chapters in the American history books. Let me speak to the issue of the moment when it comes to the Senate Judiciary Committee. We have a great nominee for the Supreme Court, thanks to Joe Biden. She's met with many of us already, and I can tell you she's extremely impressive. I knew her from her previous appearance before the Judiciary Committee just last year. She's been on the D.C. Circuit Court for less than a year. She comes to us now and is making the rounds as we expected her to, and she is going to be able to visit with every member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Democrat and Republican, who wishes for a meeting. I think they all do, before the March 21st hearing date. In the meantime, we have requests for documents. We are providing those following the normal course of discovery, which we've had with Supreme Court nominees. There have been questions raised about the Sentencing Commission. Luckily for us and for her, it is a completely transparent operation. She is producing 12,000 pages from the Sentencing Commission, all of the transcripts and all of the minutes of all of the meetings while she was there in her capacity as a commissioner. I think that's a remarkable disclosure. It goes beyond what many disclosures have in the past. We are bound and determined to start this hearing on March the 21st and then to move on her nomination in a timely fashion. We want it to be a fair and respectful hearing. I believe it will be. Senator Grassley and I have that same goal. We may have a difference on the starting date, but March 21st is the date.
Senator Murray.
Thank you. Well, it should be clear to everybody that at a moment when the stakes are so high throughout the world, the last thing we need is a shutdown or cuts to programs that our families rely on, which is why I'm really glad that we are making progress on the bipartisan agreement to maintain critical investments that support families, workers, and our communities across the country. And I'm very hopeful that we can include in that agreement the much-needed relief and support to the people of Ukraine as they face a war and a humanitarian crisis, and resources to make sure our hard-won progress against the pandemic is not reversed. So as we work to get this bill across the finish line, Democrats are continuing to push to address the challenges that families face in their daily lives, especially when it comes to bringing down the costs that they are faced with. We have laid out very specific plans to bring down health care costs, like capping the price of insulin and letting Medicare negotiate prices, and plans to bring down child care costs and transition to lower cost energy and more. And I want to say one other thing on costs as well. The Biden administration, as we know, is taking action today to ban the Russian oil in the U.S. But with that, I want to send a message to big oil and gas companies. This is no time to be profiting off a crisis or the sacrifice of the American people. As people are coming together and standing with Ukraine and standing up for democracy, I do not want to see big oil executives raking in cash while families in my state, in Washington State, or anywhere in this country pay more at the pump to support our allies. So that's something that I and others will continue to be laser focused on. Thank you.
Senator Stabenow.
Well, thank you very much. And first, let me just say amen to what Senator Murray just said. This is not the time for taking advantage of a situation around the world for price gouging or in some way artificially raising prices on Americans at the pump as we are working so hard to support the people of Ukraine in their fight. Democrats know what's important, and it shows up in our budget. That's what budgets are, is a statement of our values. And we're supporting families and small businesses and farmers and schools and communities, preparing our country to meet the challenge of COVID, wherever it comes, standing with our friends around the world in their defending of democracy. I'm so inspired, I know we all are, by the bravery of the people in Ukraine. And I just have to say, today is International Women's Day, and when you look at the women in Ukraine, the moms, the grandmas, standing up and fighting with their husbands and brothers and sons for their freedom, it is an incredibly inspiring sight. They're fighting to protect their country, their people, and we're going to continue to do everything we possibly can to support them. This aid package is going to help fight back against Putin. But he's not the only foe that we have to worry about. We're still seeing around 1,500 deaths every day because of COVID. Everyone's tired, but COVID is not done with us yet. And now is the time to follow the advice of the Girl Scouts. Be prepared. We don't know when the next variant will arrive, but when it does, we know we need the tests, the treatments, the vaccines, and the healthcare workers to defeat it. And I want to thank President Biden for leading us in the effort to focus on what we need to be prepared for the future. And I want to thank Senator Schumer for leading our fight to make sure that that happens. Through this budget, we will stand with the people of Ukraine, and we will stand strong on behalf of the American people against COVID. It's time to get this done.
Okay, questions? Yes. Look, I think it's well. Okay, the bottom line is, for many in our caucus, and I think on the other side, it's a moral issue. We don't want to fuel the Russian war effort with dollars from their oil. Second, I think it'll have some effect. And third, it may send a message to lots of oil producers and oil buyers that we are against this, and they may not want to indulge to finance them and other things simply because there are American sanctions. Yes.
What do you make of the White House having a discussion with Venezuela? Some Democrats have spoken out against that. And then just a point of clarification, I think you said $12 billion in aid for Ukraine.
I said more than.
More than 12. Is it 14? Because
you'll see the number. It's a little less than that and a little more than, yeah. Okay.
Well,
on Venezuela, I haven't heard about the discussions yet from the administration, so I'm not going to comment. Yes, yes, yes.
So should Republicans and even some Democrats say that American oil and fossil fuels are cleaner than other countries' oil and fossil fuels? So should the U.S. increase domestic oil production?
The bottom line is the administration has said that they are not holding back on domestic production, and we produce more oil than just about anybody else. Next.
do you intend to put legislation on the Senate floor that would implement Russian oil ban?
Well, we first have to see what the House passes, and then we'll discuss things with the administration and find the best way to make sure that the oil import ban is tight and tough. Yes.
Republicans have criticized you all for not moving quickly enough with the Ukrainian aid. They say that it should have been its own bill. Do you think they're moving fast enough? And are you confident? Can you say with certitude that the omnibus will pass this?
First of all, the quickest way to get this done is through the omnibus. You put a separate bill on the floor. If our Republican friends know the way the Senate works, any one person can delay it for weeks. The omnibus is the quickest way to get the aid. And in fact, if we had listened to some of our Republican friends, or the administration had, weeks ago and passed sanctions before the invasion, we never would have had the unity we would have had with Europe and the Western world, and the sanctions would have been much diminished and less effective. So the administration's done a great job here, and there are always people, taking shots at them figuratively. They're wrong. They're just wrong. On the omnibus, yes, I'm very optimistic that it will pass. Hopefully the House sends it to us tomorrow. We can then move it and hopefully certainly pass it before the midnight Friday deadline. Yes.
Economists Joseph Stiglitz and Lawrence Lindsay have talked about.
I don't answer economists. No, it's a joke.
They say it would be
it's the dismal science, Bolton.
They say it would be a good idea to send out cash to Americans to help them deal with inflation.
I'd have to look at their. I'd have to look at.
$1,200 checks.
We pushed it very hard last year. It was effective. I'd have to look at what they're saying. Yes.
So Poland has said that it's ready to deploy all its MiG-29 jets to Ramstein for the U.S. to do what it wants with them. So my question to you is, what is in the omnibus? Is there loan guarantees in the omnibus to help allies like Poland and NATO?
There's ample money for the administration to do what's needed to help protect the Polish, to help protect the Ukrainian people. I haven't seen this proposal, so I wouldn't want to comment on it. But I've always felt we should try to help Ukraine protect its own airspace. It's utterly amazing when everyone thought that Russia would control the airspace over Ukraine within a few days, that they still can't.
Are you prepared to pass
Last one.
Are you prepared to pass a super short CR if the omnibus takes a
We believe we're going to get the omnibus done in time for the deadline. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.